Hello, all my lovely Ev Dogg from Air viewers. This is Evan Benton of Ev Dogg from Air. I'm starting a new segment on my program called The Left Can't Meme. And in this segment, I'm going to be reviewing leftist memes and explaining why they aren't funny. It sounds like a lot of fun to me, and I hope you'll agree and hope you'll play along by sending in some of your favorite left-wing memes that you might have seen your friends share on the Facebook or wherever. So in this video, I'm going to be just answering some of the deeper philosophical questions here. Okay, so two questions. First, what is a meme? And second, why can't the left meme? So first of all, what is a meme? The word was coined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book called The Selfish Gene. And I've actually read this book. I thought it was pretty interesting. Of course, I disagree with his views on evolution and such, but the gist of it is that in his theory of the selfish gene, it's the gene, the smallest unit of heritable information in the organism, genetic information that is, which is driving a lot of these evolutionary processes, rather than the individual or the species. So it's a very intriguing hypothesis, and he does present his arguments fairly well, I'd say. So the gene is the smallest unit of information in the genetic structure of an organism, and a meme then is an analogous unit in culture. It's the smallest unit of culture, the smallest unit of information that can be conveyed from one person to another. So it's like an idea, basically, and it is not a funny picture with a caption, which is what it has become these days. So, having read that book, when I first started seeing, the memes called memes, it really bothered me because I'm that kind of a guy. But I, realized over time that language changes, and that's okay. If I want to use the word meme sensu stricto, right, in the Dawkins sense, I will just have to clarify myself, but that's okay. So that's what a meme is, according to Richard Dawkins. And, well, according to Richard Dawkins, who coined the word, and then according to our usage, right, I guess we all kind of know what a meme is. We don't have to explain it. But it's like a cartoon. We used to call it a cartoon, like a political cartoon, a one-panel cartoon. And, for sense of completeness, sometimes people share just like tweets, right? Quotes from people become memes. Because if they're shared, that's the real thing. It's not the format per se, but it's just their shareable qualities. So, next, why can't the left meme? Well, simply put, it's because they're not funny. And especially the left, what amuses me, to no end, is the left displays a particular lack of a grasp of irony, or which requires self-reflection. But that's a circular argument, right? If memes are funny and we say that they can't do that because they're not funny, that doesn't add anything. So the reason that the left is not funny is because to the left, everything is serious. And that's basically a party. That's their whole platform, is that everything is serious and everything is a crisis. And the reason everything is a crisis is to justify a collective response to whatever they're calling a crisis. Okay, everything is so big, so terrible by definition that it cannot be handled on an individual basis. Okay, so we have to have wide sweeping, government responses, basically, even bigger than governments. We need to have the whole world involved. We need to have the United Nations involved, right? And that's what the left's whole platform is, okay? And then furthermore, many jokes have butts. There's a butt of a joke, okay? So someone you're laughing at. It's not always just a humorous observation, right? But you're often laughing at something or someone, and this cannot be done in progressive circles. Because in progressive circles, everything is about equality, right? And everything has to be taken. Um, everything is the same. We're all worth the same. We all have the same value, and so, um, like for example, transgender people is the new thing, and some people have correctly remarked that that's a funny thing, right? A man who thinks he's a lady is a funny idea. Um, but even among the transgender people, sometimes they might be able to say, "Well, we can't laugh at transgender people anymore." But what about someone who thinks he's a dog, right? That's clearly funny, I would say. But no, what if someone comes along and says, "Well, I think I'm a dog," and you've just offended that person? And not only have you offended a person, that's the point. Um, you've basically othered that person, right? You've ostracized them from the community. You've said you don't belong by making a joke, right? By making light of their situation, um, you've othered them. Is the thinking, right? That's the word they use, othering. So the left is all about collectivism and groupthink, and that's really what's so important to these people is how does the group consider me? How does the group think of me? Do my thoughts, uh, you know, agree with the thoughts of the group? And then, our power as a group, when we're shifting that power to examine someone else, and think about whether or not they belong, whether or not they're a part of our group, and whether or not we want to elevate or eliminate them, is the power to ostracize, to say you don't fit in, to declare that their actions or their behaviors or what have you, their thoughts do not agree with what the group has deemed politically correct. So, humor is a natural response to pain. Animals don't do it, but humans do. And so we're a lot better at tolerating pain because we have this big old brain that has the ability to explain things to us. And basically, when it can't explain things to us, one good response that will help us just let off some pressure is we'll laugh, right? And so that's why a lot of times humor doesn't make sense. It's because the brain has just basically given up and said that's just a ridiculous situation. Like I can't believe I don't know. I can't believe I tripped on that banana peel or whatever, falling down the stairs. It's just, it's just a silly situation. And so, it's like, when we're talking to the left, when we're trying to explain these kinds of things, it's like you're talking to Spock or Data on Star Trek. It's like it just, you don't get humor. I don't know, but that's the left for you as we're seeing. So, we ought to be able to, when we see slapstick on TV, of course we're glad that it happened to that guy and not us. But the reason it's funny and the reason that we can relate to it is we put ourselves in that person's shoes. So in that way, suffering is something that's uniting us, right? Or a comedian tells us about his bad experience was, that let lead to a funny situation that lead to a joke. We relate to those, and that's how we experience what he's telling us about as funny. Okay, so for the left, then, that lacks humor, suffering separates us. Instead of having a unified experience, suffering separates us. So, like one thing is Juneteenth, the holiday. I think that's a good idea. I've always thought that was a good idea because we can all relate to, even though I'm white and my ancestors weren't slaves that immediately in my past, we can all relate to that experience of a lack of freedom. So, you don't need to be African American to relate to the idea of slavery and to be glad that it's over. But instead, we would take the stance, if we're on the left, that only certain people can really appreciate that, and that's what leads to this idea of what they call intersectionality. And so intersectionality is the intersection of different identities that a person has in the leftist ideology. Okay, so feminism is between men and women. Classism is between different social strata, and then racism is between different races, right, or different ethnicities, and we have to really get in there and police those boundaries, because the idea is that a person can't, like transgress those boundaries, basically outside of the context of this liberal framework. Okay, we got to make sure that doesn't happen, and so we end up just, it's not enough to just be a black woman in a wheelchair. We've got to think about what it's like to be a black woman in a wheelchair who's also a Muslim and thinks she's a dog. And it just gets more ridiculous and more ridiculous, and it's that idea of a oppression Olympics, you might have heard. But that stems from this inability to acknowledge one another's humanity through suffering, right? And we can't just say, "Hi, you fell off. You fell and tripped over a banana peel, but you're okay." Glad that wasn't me, but I'm glad you're okay. We can't have that experience. We've got to create a government program to get rid of banana peels, right? To make sure that there's not a single banana peel in the world. So because of that, because of that inability to make fun of people, inability to recognize suffering as something that unites us, that means that leftists cannot react to any situation as an individual. So every reaction has to be vetted, basically, and that's really what it is. The performative aspect, of these sort of social groups, is that the political correctness is really about having the right reaction to the right stimulus. Okay, and that's it's very, very that's why you can't be original. That's why you can't go out and do lots of different things in lots of different instances, because you have to know beforehand what's expected of you, and how to behave according to this concept called political correctness that we have. So, and it's a justification then for why we can't act as individuals. So we can't act as individuals because if we do, or we can't react as individuals, I should say, have emotions, have individual emotions, because then if we did, those individual emotions might cause pain to some individual down the road that we can't, even perceive of. And because the internet exists, that's going to be around forever, right? So, but it's a philosophical question, and it's an internal debate for the leftists to have. Am I worried about offending people because it would hurt them? Or am I worried about being ostracized by the group because I'm being seen as not politically correct? So again, the whole thing for a collectivist, for a leftist, is how they're seen by the group, how they're perceived by the group. And so it's just, am I othering by othering another person, if that's inappropriate, right? Am I going to end up othering myself or being othered by the group? So that's, and of course you can other MAGA hat wearers, right? You can other alpha males, you can other certain groups, but that is not determined by you. You don't get to decide which groups you can other, even by your own lived experience, which is so important to leftists, right? You don't get to take your own lived experience into consideration when you're choosing which groups you're going to make fun of. So that's another reason that you're not going to be funny. So, my opinion, though, my realization that I want to make a point of in this video is that I think that the reason that leftists aren't funny is the same reason that women aren't funny. That there aren't very many female comedians, for example. And the basic reason is just that they don't take chances. Women don't take chances. They are risk averse. And there's two reasons that women are risk averse. The first reason is that men exist, and men are not risk averse. Men take chances, and women know that they can just take advantage of men taking those chances, right? Men can go out and, well, be comedians, for example. Like we see comedians on TV, right, doing the specials, and we don't realize that for every one comedian that's made it, there's another 100 comedians that didn't make it. Okay, and those are basically all men. So a woman can wait for all those 100 men to make those mistakes, so she doesn't have to. Okay, and then when the one man comes to the top, she can try to be attractive to him if that's what she's trying to go for. And then the second reason that women do not take chances is that it doesn't benefit them. So, and this is just simple biology. A man can work his butt off in his garage, his whole life, and then when he's 70, after accomplishing nothing and being a loner his whole life, he can invent the light bulb and make $1 billion, and he can go out and get married and he can impregnate a woman. But a woman, her reproductive system starts to shut down a lot earlier than that, so she really needs to just go along with the other women and just make it known to the pool of eligible bachelors that she's one of those eligible women, and that's the best strategy for her to follow to have children. So in other words, men are judged by their achievements, and women are judged by their acceptance by the group. So a man, can go out and he can achieve something. He can do something individually that sets him apart from other men. But a woman, basically, she just needs to adhere to the standards of what a woman is in her society, and she will find a man. It might not be the alpha man that every woman wants, but it's not likely to be, one of the bottom of the barrel men. That's the thing is, the alpha male gets all the women he wants, but the lowest men get no women. And for women, they end up with a man. There's very few women compared to men that don't end up, at least traditionally, before feminism. And that's another story, right? So, but another reason that women aren't funny and men are is that men are seen as neutral. You can take a man and you can put him in a dress even, and that just makes sense to people. You can put him in a sailor suit. You can put him in a vampire suit, and that's just, people say, okay, that's a sailor, that's a vampire, that's a woman. But when you put a woman in one of those outfits, they say that's a female vampire, right? That's a female sailor. It's just it's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance that just has the person say, why is that a woman? And that's hard to overcome, right? We're trying to overcome with all these crazy, well, I say crazy, but all these social engineering kind of schemes that are going on in different parts of the world, but it's just, it's not working. And that's probably partly why, Hollywood is tanking at the moment, is that they're trying to shoehorn female characters into all these plot lines where it doesn't make sense for them. It doesn't make sense to the viewer. The experience doesn't resonate with the viewer, and so they go elsewhere for their entertainment. So a man can dress up as a woman. Another point, this is why men are priests or pastors, is that we can, because they're neutral, we can project our desires right onto them. If you have a priestess, that's a completely different thing, right? Because the priest is as the officiant, he's sort of the stand-in for God, right? And if he's a man, we can take all our emotions to him as God and experience them authentically. We can be angry at him, we can be like hateful or whatever. But if you were a woman, if you were a priest, if we were a priestess, in a temple, we would have this protective drive that she would elicit in us. I mean, you can't be mad at women, right? That's basically how it works. They're cute. So it just sort of it really changes. It really changes the situation when you swap a man and a woman in certain situations. And we're trying to pretend that's not true, but that doesn't seem to be going very well for our society. So yeah, as I said, we're protective of women. The way that women look, the size of a woman relative to a man, she's small. Her facial features are more like a a child, okay, she has bigger eyes and just smaller, more childlike features in general. That causes us to have a protective response, right? Women are attractive, women are charming, and that elicits that protective response, and that's by design again, So imagine a woman in slapstick comedy, physical comedy, right? Imagine a woman stepping on a rake or stepping on a banana peel or getting punched in the face, right? If a man is in one of those situations, the viewer is looking at the man and saying, "I'm glad that's not me." And if a woman is in those situations, he's going, "Oh my God, is she okay?" So it changes the. I mean, it gets rid of the humor. It's not funny to see a woman get punched in the face. It's funny to see a man get punched in the face. Or how about punched in the balls, right? Kicked in the balls. That's always funny, right? But it's never funny to hit a woman. And that's not me saying that. That's the way it is, And that's just, if you're a female comedian, it's like, I don't know why. Maybe there's other things you would prefer that you might want to try out. But so, and then, as I was saying before, when we have a man up on stage, we can project onto that man. So it's not that, as the feminists say, a man can do anything, right? And that's what's great about being a man. It's that the audience can project anything onto that man. He's a blank slate. Yeah, he might end up being a CEO or a doctor or a lawyer, but he also might end up dead in the street, or dead at the bottom of a mine shaft, or dead on a battlefield somewhere. And those are the men we just forget about. And and again, projection, we just project our hopes and fears onto that. If he's a dead man, we just say, well, he deserved it, basically, or he was, that's the chance you take. That's the risk you take. That's the price you pay, for being a man. And we just understand that. So, but it's easier basically to suspend disbelief when you're looking at a man. And so a comedian, especially, is going to be playing all these different roles, right, and doing impressions and things like that. And it's just easier for him to do that if he's a man. Not too complicated. But so we can see that leftist political strategy is a very feminine strategy. It's the same strategy that women use in a typical situation, a typical society, patriarchal or not. So it's being nice, going along to get along, being very aware of social norms and adhering to them, because that's how you get rewarded. Sitting in a desk, looking straight ahead, 8 hours a day, and then getting your grades, and that determines who you are, essentially. And so this idea is just, if we just play nice and keep our head down, the government will take care of us. Who thinks that? So if we eventually take this train of thought to its natural conclusion, we will have no room for men. Okay, and that's what we're really basically doing right now. Is the state is replacing men. We're seeing that, and I'm not advocating that we set up any kind of situation of like, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm blaming women for anything right now. We clearly need to work together as males and females. We need to just start, I think, by understanding what we do differently and what we do that's good, and what we do that could be better. But this is why, that kind of idea is why with the right, the right-wing memes, we see this word cuck, right, which is short for cuckold, which is a cuckold is a man who is raising another man's children, right, is the definition of that word. And so we call on the right, well, I'm not really on the right, but right-wingers call people cucks when they go along with the system, because the system is very much cucking them. And when you go out and work all day and you come home and you've sent your child, even if it's your biological child, to the state-run schools, you're paying to raise the state's children at that point. And there's people who are recognizing that and waking up, and sometimes they're a little off color with that. I don't call people cucks, too often, but not really my strategy, if you will. But that's where that comes from. And so just like so the left and women, if they're not funny, they eventually resort to shock humor, like they used to call raunchy humor. So, and this is basically just being transgressive for the sake of being transgressive. And you can think of something like Sarah Silverman here. So there's no timing. Again, there's no irony. There's no context really. It's just like a swear word. Everyone's sitting at a nice table and then you swear, or you talk about reproductive organs or eliminative organs. So these people, they don't understand humor, and you can be humorous and inappropriate. You can be humorous and crude, of course, but eventually, there's transgression without humor. So, and that comes from not understanding humor. So they don't understand humor. They're like a little kid. They see their brother, older brother, making something happen to him, and everyone laughs, right? And they're like, well, he always makes people laugh. I don't know how to do that. So they just break a rule. They break a dish or something like that, and then just to get a rise from people, right? That's kind of the mentality that we get from that style of humor. So that's the end of my notes here on why the left can't meme, right? So basically, they're not funny. I'll just say it. And they're not funny because they can't think for themselves, and they can't think for themselves because they think that thinking for themselves could result in wrong think. Wrong think could result in ostracism of someone who shouldn't be ostracized, not recognizing their importance, and that act could get yourself ostracized, and then you're donezo because you're only defined by your group identity. So I'm going to start my next video by reviewing the memes, and hope you'll join me for that. This has been Evan Benton of Ev Dogg from Air. Send me those leftist memes. Love to see them. And comment down below, and share this video if you like it, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and have a good night.